Most people think the Glorious Revolution was about religion, about Parliament, about a Protestant king being replaced by a Catholic one. That's the decoration, not the building. When William III crossed the Channel in 1688, he brought 40,000 soldiers, but that's not the part that matters. He also brought Dutch bankers, and within 6 years, they handed England something new, a central bank, built to issue bond debt, to fund wars the crown couldn't afford, and to collect interest on the nation permanently. They wrote the contracts. They held the ledgers. They set the rate at which kings could go to war. They didn't conquer nations. They invoiced them. The Rothschilds didn't create this system. They didn't invent it. They weaponized it. Courier networks, battlefield intelligence, bond trades executed before the treaties were ever signed. By the end of this, you'll see the blueprint. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. Welcome back to Hidden Forces in History. I'm your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate. Today was supposed to be the last video of our Corporate Empires series, but we missed one. Today we're covering the Bank of England. So let's go back to 1688. England is broke. James II is on the throne. He's Catholic, hostile to Parliament, and quietly taking payments from Louis XIV. France pays him to stay out of war. And for a while, that arrangement holds, until William of Orange decides it can't. William's been fighting France for years. He understands the balance, maybe better than anyone. As long as England stays neutral, Louis has room to operate, so William invades. 40,000 troops cross the English Channel. History calls it the Glorious Revolution, calls it bloodless, calls it a rescue. That's wrong. But it's not the whole picture, because the part that gets left out is who came with him. Not just soldiers, financiers, the architects of Amsterdam's system, bond markets, ledgers, public debt. They crossed with him. And this is where it shifts. They weren't along for the ride. They were the reason. William didn't just want a crown. He needed a war machine. And England didn't have one. Well, not fast enough. The old model was simple. The king owns land. The king taxes the land. The king fights when he can't afford it. That's it. The entire system. But the Dutch had already moved past that. They figured out something else. Something more powerful than land. More powerful than gold. They figured out how you could turn the future into cash. Now. Within 2 years, William is at war with France, and the cost is different. Bigger, faster, constant. The old borrowing system, goldsmiths, merchants, and deal by deal, it doesn't scale. It can't. So by 1694, William Paterson walks in with a proposal. He studied Amsterdam, and he knows how they fund wars without running dry, and he lays it out. Private investors lend to the crown at £1.2 million. In return, they get 8% interest every year. And this is the part that they get to form a bank. A bank can issue paper notes equal to the same £1.2 million. Parliament approves it. The Bank of England opens. Now, read that carefully. They lend £1.2 million, and they issue £1.2 million. It's the same money, twice. They create the loan. Then they create the currency. That represents that loan. That's the mechanism. Early, unhidden, fractional reserve banking before it had a name. The crown gets its war chest. The bank, it gets something else. A permanent stream of income, guaranteed by the state, and the right to issue money into the economy. This wasn't charity. It wasn't patriotism. It was a system. And systems, they don't care who's in charge. So this is where it becomes clear. The bank doesn't just fund a war, it needs wars. Follow it. The crown borrows, the bank issues bonds. Investors earn interest. The crown pays through taxes. And the principal? Well, it's not really paid back. It rolls forward into the next bond, the next war, the next cycle. By 1701, the War of Spanish Succession begins. 13 years, every pound runs through the system. By the end, debt jumps from 1.2 million pounds to over 36 million pounds. That's not failure. That's the system doing exactly what it was designed to do. More debt means more bonds. More bonds means more interest. More interest means more power for the creditor class. And this is where it locks. The crown needed borrowing. The creditors, well, they needed lending. The bond market ties them together. Before this, debt was temporary. You borrowed, you fought, you repaid. After this, debt becomes permanent, infrastructure. And something new appears. A creditor class, not to a king's fortune, but to the productivity of the nation. They don't own England. They bill it. You can remove a king. You can replace a government. You can't remove a bond. And that's the difference. The obligation survives. It carries through regimes, through upheaval, through everything. Because the contract isn't with the ruler, it's with the state. That's what the Dutch understood first. A creditor embedded in the system is more stable than any monarch, because they fund whoever comes next. So the bank becomes indispensable. The crown needs it to fight. Merchants need it for currency. Investors need it to preserve their wealth. Everyone depends on it, so everyone protects it. And the people who control it, the ones holding the ledger, setting the rate, they have become the most powerful people in the room. No title, no vote, just a number. And that number decides what a war costs. Fast forward a century. The system is running. Wars are being financed the same way. Bonds, interest, rollover. It works. But there's a problem in the system. Information. If you hold bonds, everything depends on the outcome of the war. Victory stabilizes. Defeat destabilizes. And timing, well, that determines profit. The Rothschilds see it, and this is where it changes. They don't just build a bank, they build a network. 5 sons: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris. Not branches, nodes in the system. Each with local access, local intelligence, connected by private couriers. Faster than governments. Faster than official dispatches. By Waterloo, Nathan Rothschild received news before the British government actually does. And what he does next, well, that's the key. He sells it. Signals panic, prices drop, and then he buys. At the bottom. When the news becomes public, the market rebounds. And he walks away with one of the largest fortunes in Europe in a day. But that's just the visible moment. The real shift is structural. They connect markets. They move capital across borders before governments can react. The price risk is global now, before anyone else can do anything about it. It's not just banking, it's intelligence. And every government needs it, because by then, no war can be financed without them. The architecture was British, but they made it global. By the mid-1800s, Britain controls a quarter of the world, and the system spreads. Not accidentally, deliberately. Every country entering the system agrees to the same terms. Open markets. Borrow in British pounds. From British-aligned banks. Sounds like the petrodollar, doesn't it? At rates set in London, and that's the deal. Trade access for financial integration. And this is where it becomes clear. Debt isn't separate from empire. It is empire. India, the Ottoman Empire, Egypt. Same pattern. Debt builds. Payments fail. control follows. Ports, customs, trade routes, all secured through obligation, not conquest. A debtor nation can't resist its creditors. It has to remain stable, predictable, accessible. The system generates revenue without an army, without flags, without occupation, at least at first. Amsterdam built it, London scaled it, and eventually it crosses the Atlantic. Now, we've covered this story before, but in November 1910, a private train leaves Hoboken, New Jersey. Not quite where I live, but close. Drawn windows, false names, and no identifiers. They're headed to Jekyll Island. The men aboard represent a quarter of the world's wealth. 9 days, and they produce a plan, the Federal Reserve System. They call it stability, prevention, reform. That's the surface. Underneath, it's the same structure. Private banks, government charter, currency issuance, control over interest. Same design, different country. Warburg studied Europe. He knew it worked. And this is where it lands in America. The Federal Reserve Act passes in 1913, quietly, before Christmas. And what it creates is the same mechanism proposed in 1694. Same blueprint 2 centuries later. This isn't about villains. That's the part people miss. It's a villainous mechanism. And mechanisms, they don't need intention. They just run. Debt compounds, bonds expand, and interest flows. Not because someone is directing it, but because that's what the system itself does. You can change leadership. You can regulate. You can audit. The structure stays because it's foundational. Remove it, and the system doesn't free itself. It collapses. That's what was built, not just a bank, a dependency. When the system cracks, there is a response, and it's the same. Money isn't taxed, it's borrowed, it's created. Hundreds of billions, then more. Who benefits? The institutions at the center, the creditors. It's always the creditors. Because the system protects them. It has to. If the bank fails, the currency fails. If the currency fails, well, everything fails. So the bank is saved. Every time. That's the continuity. 1694 to now. Same mechanism, different scale, different names, same structure. The Bank of England has never stopped operating. 300 years. Wars. Revolutions. Collapse. But the ledger holds. The Federal Reserve is the same pattern, different continent, same design. Amsterdam built it. London weaponized it. New York scaled it. And what comes next is what happens when Wall Street inherits the system. Because it didn't break it. It didn't replace it. It refined it. Same blueprint, different century. The ledger never closes. And if you're hearing this video after our Wall Street episode, which came out last week, you already know where it's going, where it's been, and what the future may look like. If you haven't seen that episode, be sure to go back and watch it. This has been Hidden Forces in History. I'm Jeremy Ryan Slate. Be sure to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash that subscribe button if you want more Hidden Forces in History.